The ocean looks calm, quiet, endless.
But beneath these waves are voices the world chose to forget. Millions of lives stolen and carried across this water.
The ocean remembers everything, every cry swallowed by the wind, every name that vanished beneath the waves. For centuries, the Atlantic did not just carry ships, it carried stolen lives. From the 1500s to the 1800s, millions of African men, women, and children were taken from their homes and forced onto ships sailing toward an unknown fate. This is a story of a forgotten human tragedy, a story of the voices the ocean almost silenced. It began on land. Villages burned into memory, families torn apart in moments. People were stripped of their belongings, their hair shaved, their identities reduced to silence. Mothers held their children close, not knowing if the next sunrise would find them together. They were herded into wooden pens near the shore, waiting, listening to the ocean that would soon decide their fate. For days, sometimes weeks, they lived in this state of suspension, caught between the life they knew and a terrifying unknown. The air was thick with the scent of salt and sorrow, as families were separated forever, a wound that would never fully heal. The ships were called coast traders built, not for people, but for profit. As the captives were forced to board, the true horror of the journey began to unfold. Below deck, men were chained together in narrow spaces where darkness never ended. They were packed so tightly, some could barely lie flat or turn over. Movement became a memory, a luxury they no longer had. The air was stagnant, heavy with the heat and the smell of fear. Above deck, the sky was visible, but freedom was not. The world was reduced to the creaking wood of the ship and the endless, indifferent ocean. Human lives were treated as cargo, their value measured only in terms of the profit they might bring. Time lost its meaning below deck. Days blended into nights. The only light came from a flickering lantern, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to mock their confinement. The air was heavy. Breath felt borrowed. Hunger, thirst, and fear lived side by side, constant companions in the suffocating darkness. Sickness spread like wildfire, weakening bodies already pushed to their limits. Yet even there, humanity survived. Men whispered stories of home, of the families they missed, of the lives they once lived. Names were repeated softly, as if saying them aloud might keep them alive. A small act of defiance against the forces trying to erase them. Hope survived in these whispers, a fragile light in the overwhelming dark. Women and children often remained above deck, but this was no comfort. They were exposed to the scorching sun, the biting wind, and the constant uncertainty of their situation. Mothers sang lullabies in languages the ocean could not erase. These were songs meant to calm frightened hearts, to soothe the tears of children who understood little but felt everything. They were songs to remind children they were loved, that even in this nightmare, a mother's care endured. In the face of unimaginable fear, these quiet acts of love and protection were a testament to the strength that did not disappear. Food was scarce and often spoiled. A small bowl of rice or beans, barely enough to sustain life. Water was carefully measured, a precious resource doled out in small rations. Illness spread easily in the crowded, unsanitary spaces, leaving many weak and vulnerable. Each sunrise was a question. Who would still be breathing by nightfall? Every breath was a victory. Every new day, a miracle. Survival was not guaranteed, it was earned with every painful, determined breath. It became a daily battle against despair, sickness, and the crushing weight of their circumstances. Strict rules ruled the ships. Obedience was enforced with brutal efficiency. The captives were constantly reminded they were watched, counted, and controlled. The crew patrolled the decks, their presence a constant source of dread. Any sign of defiance was met with harsh punishment, a stark reminder of their powerlessness. Fear ruled the ship, a cold, heavy blanket that settled over everyone. But even under this constant threat, the human spirit refused to disappear. It flickered in the darkness, a quiet, stubborn flame that could not be extinguished. Resistance did not always shout. Sometimes it whispered. It lived in the small acts of defiance that kept hope alive. Shared looks across the deck, secret signals passed between hands, a whispered plan to share a piece of food. These moments of connection were lifelines. Women often led these moments of courage, using the little freedom of movement they had to protect others, to organize, and to maintain a sense of community. They understood that their survival depended not just on individual strength, but on their ability to care for one another. In these silent acts, courage found a way to bloom even in the most hostile environment. On one ship, remembered as the Liberatus, this quiet courage rose above fear and erupted into open rebellion. In 1797, a group of West Africans took control of the ship, turning its course and steering not just a vessel but their own destiny. They fought for their freedom with a desperation born of unimaginable suffering. Though their journey was ultimately intercepted and their freedom short-lived, their bravery traveled far beyond the ocean. The story of the Liberis became a powerful symbol of resistance, a reminder that the human spirit will always strive for freedom, no matter the odds. For those who survived the treacherous ocean crossing, another heartbreak awaited. Upanaribal families and friends who had endured the journey together were separated once again, this time for good. Names were replaced with numbers, identities scrubbed away. Their futures were now decided by strangers in a strange land. The Middle Passage had ended, but the suffering had not. The pain of the journey was only the beginning of a new and prolonged ordeal, a life of bondage and forced labor. The chains of the ship were replaced by the chains of slavery. Yet, even after all this, something powerful survived. The songs they sang, the languages they spoke, the stories they whispered, these were things that could not be chained. They were carried in memory and passed down through generations. Today, their descendants still carry the strength, the resilience, and the spirit of those who endured. The ocean tried to erase them. History tried to forget them, but it did not succeed. Their legacy lives on in the culture, the music, the art, and the very soul of the communities they built. It's a legacy of survival against all odds, a story of the unbreakable human spirit. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that deserve to be heard.